Okay, hello everyone. Kevin Stevenson here with GetMeTheGeek.com, and today we're going to do a little bit of Christmassy fun. Today we're going to talk about 3D printing. Yes, that's right, 3D printing. Fun, fun, fun for everyone. I have a 3D printer. I've had it for several years now. I haven't done a whole lot with it. When I first got it, I used it, and then when I moved, I sort of set it on a shelf and never got back to it much. So lately I've been getting back into it, and so I am relearning some of the 3D printing stuff and how to do that stuff. So I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys on a short little tutorial video. We'll walk through it live and I'll show you what I'm doing. So first of all, let me just show you. Let me get over here and I'll show you the printer I have. Okay, so this is the printer I have. This happens to be, say, open box. But it's a little printer. I think I spent $225 or something when I first bought it several years ago. So now it's up and running, and I printed several things. It's not a great printer. It's not a bad printer. I'm sure that like nowadays you can go out and get a new printer for that's going to perform better than this guy. However, this is what I'm working with. This is what I'm going to show you. So the first thing I do is, first is get yourself a printer. You know, there are cheap, couple $100 ones. Prusa, Creality, those are the big name ones. Do your research. Spend a little time looking at it, but we're going to talk about this one and all the things I do. So, what do you need to do printing? Well, you need a printer, right? You need a slicer, right? This is Cura, it's a slicer used, and then you need objects. Right? So you go to Thingiverse. Let's see. You go to Thingiverse, MakerBot Thingiverse, and you get yourself something to print. So you go up here, Thingiverse, boom, you go here, and there are literally thousands of things for you to print. You just have to find the thing that you want, print it off. That is the easiest way to get started. So you got a printer, you've got objects, you've got a slicer, and so you move on from there. And you look through this, and there's literally tons and tons and tons and tons of things. For me, what I wanted to do was I wanted to make some Christmas ornaments. So today we're going to talk about these little Christmas ornaments. Here they are. Here's the one I picked out on Thingiverse, right? So you go, you take a look at this guy, right? And here's your little object. Let me just go over here. So, boom. It has several different versions. So, now that you've found something, what do you do with it? Well, you download the files. You go up here, download all files. They show up. You get a zip file. Let me just show you that. So you get a zip file, and in that zip file, there's going to be probably what you call an STL file. So like here's a dancing snowman, STL, right? So let me just go over here and let's go sort of dancing, right? Dancing snowman, boom, right? Search, boom. Here's the dancing snowman. Here it is. Here's a picture of what I printed. Here's the 3D model of it. You can see that when you files, it just has a single STL file. And then you download it, throw it in your slicer, and you print it, as long as it fits in your stuff. Now, hold your horses, back up. We're going to go in a little bit more detail on this, but it'll be fun. So if you got questions, comments, go ahead, throw it into the chat, and we can talk about other stuff. But let's talk about getting this stuff. So first things first, go to here and get and download Cura, right? So once you download and install Cura, here it is. I'm going to open this guy up. And it takes just a second. It's opening. It happens to be open on the other screen, so you don't see it happening. I can't move it over here just yet. All right, so here it is. Now, you look at this. My bad. And I have a printer already selected right here. So normally you're not going to have this printer in here, right? So you're going to go up here and you're going to add printer. And so add printer, cloud printer, IP printers, not non-networking printers. And so you go through here, and here is the massive list of printers. And so if you happen to have my printer, you might be asking, well, how do I know what printer stuff I need? Well, I just searched, and I know that this is actually this printer that I believe is what Monoprice had rebranded, and this is their printer. Now, it gives you information about the Cura settings and all of that in here. Now, the wonderful thing about this is you can just find this printer in there. So the Mylan M200 3D printer. So you go down all the way down here to M. Oops, all right, I went way past it. Mylan M200. There it is. And then you click Add Printer. Now, so suppose you have a Prusa. So here are Prusas. Or maybe you have a Creality. Go all the way up here. Oops. And you find Creality. And so here are your Creality printers. Ender 3s. Very popular. There's your Ender 3. You add it in here. Boom. And you've got your printer. Right? So now it looks like this. So you have this build plate that you're seeing right here in this middle, which shows you basically the print cube that you're capable of. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do I look at this? All right, so if you right click in this area, you can rotate this around and get yourself a better view, right? And if you use your scroll button, it will zoom in and zoom out, right? Okay, so I've got my printer selected. I've got the actual plastic that I'm using, which is PLA. Sorry, I seem to be yawning for some reason today. PLA. You go in here and you have all these wonderful things that are set up on your printer by default. And a lot of this stuff comes straight out of the default kit when you pick up your printer and you just select your plastic, okay? So it's really made to be pretty straightforward and simple now. It's much newer, much easier than it used to be, right? You got this prepare, preview, and monitor, right? So monitor is if you were actually had it connected directly to your computer and you can watch and monitor the actual print. We're gonna take this, export the G code into an SD card that will be put onto the printer, right? So once you've got this and you've got your printer set up, and you've downloaded that snowman, we go over here and go to Snowman Ornament, Dancing Snowman Ornament. You go and you pick that snowman, and here he is. You pick, boom, and there he is. It puts him in there directly how you want it to do. Now, if it's placed in there, all good, fits in there perfect inside your envelope, and it doesn't need supports or anything like that, then you can basically just come down here and print, excuse me again, and pick slice. All right, so it's slicing it. What that's doing is it's taking that 3D model and it's literally slicing it up, right? Because your 3D printer prints in layers. And so it's got to take that model and slice it up into thin layers, like you're making a cheese sandwich, and just putting multiple layers of cheese to stack it up, right? Okay. So then it says save to disk. That'll save out the G code which your printer needs, and also gives you an estimation on how long it takes to print. Now, look at that number, which you may not be able to see because I'm in there. All right. So look at this number right here. Okay. I hit save to disk. It gives you an idea. That's 6 hours and 20 minutes to print this baby, right? So 3D printing is not a fast operation, right? So what do? You hit save, okay? And that exports it out. And that's all there is to this portion of it in the basic level. Now remember, we're just keeping it very on top on the basics. That I have an SD card. Take the SD card, you put it in your computer, you copy this G-code file that you get out of here. Let me show you what it looks like. So here it is, G-code. I'm going to open it in VS Code. And here we go. Boom, boom. So here is all of the G-code that tells that printer how it is going to move. See all that? That is a lot of code, right? You don't need to know any of this. None of this stuff, right? So these G codes here are moving your printer around, and when it tells the X, Y, and the Z, and when to turn on the extruder and things like that. So that's what all of this is. And just remember, you don't have to know any of this. It's not important for you to know that. What is important is that the Cura has the proper stuff for your printer, and then it will spit out the right information. That's how it works. Okay. Now let's just look at some of these things. See these profiles. This is like how thick are your layers. Infill. So when printers work, you build walls. Think of it like this. So you build a wall, and you're building a structure, and when it's printing a shell or a wall, it's not doing a solid print all the way across there, right? So what it's doing is it creates little walls, and in between those walls for the shell, it will do infill, and that's what that is. So we'll take a look. I can do a preview here, and I think here, if I can tell you, nope. I haven't used this in a while, and I can't remember exactly how to get placed stuff there. Let's just zoom in on there. Well, that doesn't tell me where I need, but this would be a playback. Now, at some point in time in the past, I used to be able to see what it looked like on the way through. I'm trying to remember. It show you. Like I said, I haven't used this in a while, and I can't remember how to do all these things right off the top of my head. But while we're looking at this, let's point out a couple things. So as you can see how all those little lines are in there? See this little bottom thing? That's like a skirt for adhesion. So when it puts on there, it puts that down, and then it puts on there, and then they peel that off the bottom when it's done. Okay? Well, I thought I had a piece of that around here, but I was throwing it away. And so that's how that works. So this, you peel it off of there, and then off the build plate, and then you pull that little adhesion off. Now you can have supports that can go on there. And so like if you have this is easier to see. So if you have like these arms, stuff they're sticking out there, they're maybe out there, they're sticking out way long. And so you can actually have it print supports that hold that arm up so that when you're printing it, it doesn't go all the way down. And then so that supports and stuff has to be taken off of there after the fact too. So there's typically cleanup and stuff that you have to do on these prints, right? Okay. So that's sort of how that works. Yeah. So yeah, so like I said, and that's really the basics. Now, what I did, I will take it a step forward here. Let me just open ornaments that I'm creating. And so what I'm doing is I'm printing up ornaments. Well, I'm printing up ornaments that go on here. I'm printing ornaments, and they're like snowflake ornaments. And let me show you what they look like here in just a second. And what has changed in the time I've first started on this, and recently, I guess, you had to, like, if you didn't like the model, you had, okay, well, you can go and throw it in a 3D, like Fusion 360, and try to get it modified or change stuff and do that sort of stuff. Now, so like MakerBot has this customizer. So you can go into the customizer, and let me remind you that, like, when you go into these customizers, it'll do that, and then it'll generate these changes on its own for you. But the problem is when you go to submit it in here and you put it in the queue, it takes forever to get that. So I don't recommend you do that. So we ignore that customer. See how that is? Boom, right? 3 hours. Craziness. So this guy has a nice little instruction. This is why I picked this one, because it's like, oh, look, there's instructions on how to modify this. So in this particular one, he has several variants of it, but instructions on how to modify this thing. Sorry, excuse me again. Run the customizer on your own computer, which is what you want to do, because otherwise it's going to take forever and a day to try to get this through the MakerBot one on here, right? And so you download this Open SCAD program, and then you also need a font that he has in here, and then you can follow this instructions, and boom, you've got a model you can print, right? So let's look at these instructions, and here is how to run your customizer, right? So boom, all these instructions, right? It looks maybe daunting, but it's not that bad. First thing, you go down and you download the Open SCAD program. Here it is. Boom. You can do a Mac, Windows, or Linux. Now, I actually installed this using Chocolatey. So if you like Chocolatey, you can install using Chocolatey. So I've got videos on how to use Chocolatey. So if you're interested in that stuff, check that out in one of my other videos, right? Okay. So let's go back to what we were talking about. We get this, we download the program, right? Install it on your computer, follow this stuff, mostly just ignore all this stuff here, right? Because I'm going to go over that here. So that's step one. Now you got to figure out what you want to do with the font. A, you can install the font on your system, or B, you can do something in OpenSCAD. So he also mentioned this is a Google font. So you can just go up to Google Fonts, search for that font, Berkshire Swash, and he says what that is in this article somewhere, right? So that's what I've done. You download the family of the video of this font, right? And so you may be wondering, well, how do I install fonts? Installing fonts in Windows is pretty straightforward. You download this file. It's going to give you a zip file. right? And so I unzipped it, and what's in there is this. You get this, which is the licensing stuff about this file, right? But installing a font on Windows is pretty easy. Basically, you click on this, you right click, and you click install for all users, right? Install for all users. Boom. Do you want to replace it? Yes. And that font is installed now, right? So why did you have to do that? Because he used this font when he created this here. Now you've got this downloaded, installed. You've got the font installed. And so that is all you need to get going with this. Now let's open this program, right? Here it is. Okay, here it is. Boom. Now, so I've got this Snowflake already loaded right here. Now, where did I get that file? Well, that's interesting. So you go back over here and you go and you download this file, right? So let's see what we get. When you download that, it is, well, let's download all those files because I think I did this slightly different. So let's go ahead and do that. You can look, by the way, you can look at all the files, right? So here's this, and this, right? So you open that file, you download this file right here, Christmas name ornament 1.2, and then you open it. Now I've named mine Amazon Snowflake, right? Because I've got it right here. So we open this guy, right? It's just a bunch of text. So coming into this program is this. Here's what it looks like. Okay. So you're like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff, right? Don't worry, breathe. This is pretty straightforward. Now, just remember, this is the very basics, and everything from here gets more complicated, but you can deal with that later as you grow, right? All this text over here in the editor, you don't have to deal with at all, because it's set up in a customizer. So you go to Windows Customizer, right? Well, it's actually already open here. And so you see we have these parameters. Let's just open all these parameters up here and take a look. So you've got basics, font, flight parameters, advanced parameters, right? So first, let's change the name. Kevin. That's my name, right? Hit tab. Boom. It changed that. Now, you'll notice that down here in the font section, we have that Berkshire Swash. You can pick other fonts that are in here. No problem, right? So there it is. Now, also there's the underlined text. Click that, change it to no. All of a sudden, the text is gone, right? Now, background thickness. So if you see that red part, that's the background. So it's going to print this on there. And now if you wanted it to be see-through, like a hollow, no background, you just change this to 0 on this, and boom, it's there. Now, if you did that, and then you turned off the underline text, right? You notice, and there's probably some logic in here, but you can't turn off the background and have the underline off too. Why? Because you just have a word, my name, those letters just out there in the middle with nothing attached. And remember, this is 3D printed. So if those would just be letters and they'd be attached to nothing. So you have to leave that on. And if you go all the way down here, just take that, right? Now flakes. Now there's different properties in these flakes, so you can adjust these parameters as you want, right? Any of these parameters. Let me get this over the side here a little bit, since my head is in the way apparently, right? So you have these things here, name offset, printing everything, name, snowflake, background, everything. So if you had, one nozzle, multiple nozzles, so if you had like the background in one color, those things are all possible. So now let's go look at that article on how to use it. So you go through here, and you're wondering, like, preview button, F5 at least one. So we hit over there, we hit F5, hit F5, and it'll like do re-render for the preview. I cannot talk today, right? So now, when you got it, when it's looking good, you want to render. That's F6 to generate a final model, right? So let's take a look at that. And hit F6, right? So see the stuff happening down on the bottom here, and you have this progress bar which goes all the way in. So it's recalculating all that stuff for it to get ready for that final STL export that we're going to do, okay? So we'll give it just a second to do that. While it's doing that, let's flip back over to our article. So once we've done that render button, generates the final model. Depending on how complex this is, this could take a while. So just be patient. Everything in 3D printing is be patient. Okay, now when it's done rendering, you can click the STL button to export it, right? Now, the export is also F7 button. So we'll take a look at that. So let's go back here. It's almost done. So take a look at these buttons right here: preview, render, STL, 3D print. Those correspond to the things that they're highlighting in this article also, okay? So almost ready, and all of a sudden, boom, it's going to have a picture back any second now. All right, man, it's ta-da! There it is. That's a whole Kevin print in there, right? So now you can hit this STL button, or you can hit F7. So I'm going to hit F7, and it's going to say export to STL, right? And then we're going to save this in as Kevin, right? Boom, right? So we've done that. And as you can see down here in this dialog box, it's telling you that it's doing that, right? So now let's go back to Cura. We're going to open a file, and we should have that Kevin STL Snowflake in here, and boom, and there it is, right? Ah, lovely. So as you look at that, you see the gray in there. That's the adhesion that'll be in there. So you can see that on there. Okay, take that, it all goes away. You slice this baby up. I keep forgetting. So you got these buttons over here, right? There's our preview. Yeah, look at that preview. And that's how it's going to actually print this whole thing. Isn't that freaking neat? Here, let me change that angle so you get that. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Bam. All right. Then you saved a disk, right? Like I said, Then you've got your SD card, you put it in your printer, yeah, and then depending on your printer, my printer, I stick in the SD card and then select it on the little menu and boom, it's printing. Now, let me show you a little video of it printing. Here it is. Here is my printer printing. So you see it's going across there. I have to use my Wise Cam. That way I can keep an eye on it while it's printing and do all that stuff. So pretty neat, huh? So this is a short video partial of it printing, right? And that's kind of all there is to it. Once it gets done there, you pull that off and you're done. Okay. All right. So this has been a very basic intro on 3D printing, on how it works, and all the fun. Just remember, you can make all kinds of stuff with this. And printers are cheap now. For a couple $100, you can get a 3D printer and you can print all kinds of stuff. So go and look at some of those 3D printers. Go on Thingiverse and go, wow, is there anything that I want to do? Ornaments are not the only thing you can do. Book stands, just little fidget spinner, clickers, things, all kinds of stuff. It's just the world is your at your disposal to print and design these things. Well, there's also, if you're wanting to do some designing, I recommend checking out Autodesk's Fusion 360 is a free for personal use. You can do some designing stuff there. So I'm Kevin Stevenson with GetMeTheGeek.com, and this has been another Christmas tutorial.